recording. Remember that. And it's going. Good. Check it out. My little reminder, start recording. Did it. All right. Thanks everybody for coming back. Today, we're going into sort of a regular type schedule. First with a talk about just a few things important in a startup. What's the idea, coming up with MVP to solve the idea, launching, iterating, feedback, pivoting, and that is a loop that repeats. First, the housekeeping things. This is the schedule, the regular schedule. So I'm gonna try and go faster with this talk, although it's a lot of stuff, just so we have more time for breaking out and talking and not so much lecturing. So I guess I'll get started. Don't forget, yeah, can you rename yourself if you haven't to like that style? That helps for the breakout rooms. And I wanted to remind people on reddit.com/r/HMC INQ. Need more participation there. Need people to post their startups. If you want to be in demo day, you got to post your startup in there. All right. And also, I've just made a thread for ideas. So post ideas in there, upvote them, add comments to them. One of the most important things with all this is like you need to talk to users and get out there and don't be shy. If you want to do a startup, you can't be that shy about your ideas. You're always pitching and you're always explaining. Yeah, we do have Slack and Reddit. I want to try and focus more on the Reddit one because it's got the upvoting stuff and the threading, and it might just show up if you already use Reddit. Slack is always there. People will be on Slack. They'll get notifications, but it's nice. The Reddit thing, it's good for stuff like doing AMAs for the speakers and things like that. So go there now, even or while I'm talking or during the breakout pods. Reddit.com/r/HMC INQ. You click join at the top, and then I will have to change your flair to match your pod name and all that. I thought that you could do it yourself, but you can pick your little animal at least. Okay, reminder, yep, October 23rd is demo day with real investors. And basically, pretty soon we're gonna start practicing pitching because it's not just for the demo day, it's for actually yourself and figuring out what is your product, what is your company, what is your service, what is the problem you're solving. Just a reminder, we had one last Tuesday. I think it went all right. We're gonna have it again next Tuesday. That's just one-on-one. You might be paired with a mentor or just probably another founder just to chit chat, optional. Also, starting next Wednesday afternoon, based on survey of mentors, we're gonna have a mentor office hour thing. I'll send out an email once that's figured out sometime before Wednesday afternoon, where you can get like a 20-minute block one-on-one with one of the mentors, not necessarily your pod mentor, if they are available. All right, let's start. Idea, how do you come up with ideas? How do you know it's a good idea? I touched on this last week. You just gotta be, anything that's a problem, don't be happy with it. But what makes a good problem? Start with the problem, first of all. I lifted this slide off of Y Combinator. A lot of this talk is just smashing together a lot of different Y Combinator talks with my own stuff. So basically you want big problems. And the definition of a big problem is some or all would be great. Most of these, right? Popular, a lot of people have it. Growing, maybe it's not that big now, but more and more people are having it. Urgent, when they have that problem, they need to fix it. It's a bad problem. When they have that problem, it's expensive to fix it. When they have that problem, they are required to fix it legally. And they have that problem, when someone does have this problem, they have it a lot, multiple times a day, hopefully. So here's their answer. A good, millions of people have this problem. It's growing at least maybe 20% a year. Right now, people have this problem. You're not anticipating future problems. Once, everyone uses VR, there'll be these problems. Like people have these problems now. Hopefully it's expensive that in aggregate, it's billions of dollars are being spent. Mandatory could be that recently there was a trigger, like a law changed that caused this problem to be new or worse or able to be solved. And hopefully they have to deal with this problem like every hour of the day, something like that. The one thing you don't want is a solution in search of a problem. A lot of times, really, the solution is to solve the problem, right? if you have a, you need something screwed in and you make a screwdriver and the screwdriver doesn't work, you shouldn't go around looking for like, well, what can I use this screwdriver for? Maybe I could use it as a doorstop or something like that, because the problem was the problem, not that I made this cool thing or I found this cool technology. I have a hobby that I like and I wonder if there's any problems that can be solved. So you do not want a solution in search of a problem is key. Then the third part of sort of what makes it a good idea, a good problem, is that there has to be sort of a why you, like what's your competitive advantage here? Like, why wouldn't just anyone solve this problem? And this is also from the YC thing. So it can be just the founders. Here's sort of, I'll show their little answers to this. When they say 1 out of 10 here, they mean that like, is this a problem that only like 10 people on Earth could solve? And you're one of them? You know, that might be something where you've got a competitive advantage, where it's just like, you have this deep scientific research and ability to solve this problem. Again, that the market growing fast, it's just a good, they want at least sort of a 20% a year. That your solution, the product itself, is so much better than what's out there. It needs to be an order of magnitude better. Like, to really get people to switch and start taking on your solution to the problem versus what's already out there, hopefully it's at least 10 times better. Maybe you have some advantage, some insight into how to get customers. Like, you've built this huge following of people really interested in this problem, and you're trusted in that community. And you can just say, guess what, guys, I have a solution, I'm selling. And you don't have to acquire them by paying money, you just get them. And then there's a word of mouth component to your solution that results in more and more customers coming at no incremental cost to you. And then finally, the monopoly is sort of, they say, it's a Boolean thing. You either have a monopoly or you don't. And a monopoly in the sense that there's network effects, it's a marketplace or something like that, where as your company grows, as your solution grows, it gets harder and harder for other people to break in because there's value in the size of your own company. So that's it. That's how you analyze an idea. Come up with it, think about, is it big? Am I looking at the problem, or am I just looking at a solution for something that there's no problem? So then you got to start figuring out your minimum viable product. That's what MVP is, and launching. And what is the strategy there? Basically, launch quickly. You want to get it out there. You don't want to build this giant cathedral, and you want to start getting it in front of real users and talking to them. So you actually want to talk to users even before you launch, even before you start your MVP, as quickly as possible. That's why I'm like, post it in Reddit, post it in Slack, whatever, use them both. I don't care. Talk to your classmates if you were physically around classmates, but talk to users first. So that's the first step, is you need to get some users, just whatever. I mean, it's harder now with COVID, but if you found a problem.
Hey, Josh, can I chime in here and say something for a second? I think people a lot of times are scared to sell something before they have it. But it's much easier to put together like a one-sheet PDF of a product that you're thinking of building than it is to build the actual product. And so whether you have users or you're selling, to other companies, it's so much faster to sell them something that doesn't exist yet and then build the thing that they pay you for than it is to build something and then find out it wasn't the right thing.
Yeah, and there's a thing too where people think like, well, okay, I want to, talking about the MVP, that it's like, okay, if I'm a software startup, right, I just whip something up, get it out there, ready to go. But what if I'm building like this really, a rocket or whatever, or like a really deep technical thing? They called it, a heavy MVP, where there's really nothing minimum that's not a lot of work. But in that case, you can make an even easier MVP, because you should be making that PDF, that website or something that explains it and pitches it and gets it out there. Like, you don't even need to make, people don't expect it to work yet. It's such a, I'm making a supersonic airplane that's going to be better than everything ever, it's going to be 7-8 years away. But you can make up your MVP is just the sales pitch, and there's no excuse to not have like that all worked out. And you're going to need to talk to people and have the plan, and just see who bites, see if you get any nibbles. So you got to get the users, so you get some signups and stuff, you actually then have to talk to them. You get this list, you're all excited, but then it's like, I actually have to reach out to these people. And it's like actually talking to them, not necessarily just a survey, but actually you don't want to talk to them. You want to let them talk. When you do get it full to them and you talk to them, just like in any conversation, you should do most of the listening. And you want to get your mind around their world, get in their context. It's that whole empathy thing of like, you had an idea, maybe you had this problem, but you're not an expert or you're not everybody, and other people have variations on this problem. Here's just a quick, and this video is being recorded, I believe. Yep. So you can go back and look at it, but here's 5 questions that, YC offers for the actual, conversation. You don't have to use exactly these, but you want to get sort of real details about the problem. So one, what is the hardest part about doing the thing that you're trying to solve? You want to solve big problems that are urgent, things like that. Tell me about it. This is just sort of delving and getting the big picture and seeing like, oh, I see. They're telling me this problem, but their real problem is this. Just get the sense of it. Why was it hard? Just what have you already done to try and solve this problem? If they're like nothing, maybe that's a sense that like, it's not a big a problem or doesn't happen that often. It's not that big a deal, or they'll give you good insight and they'll start to tell you competitors and you'll go, oh, I didn't even know that was an option. And then you start looking at that and you'll just get better insight. And again, with the competitors, they've tried stuff and then obviously you're doing something to deal with this problem, but what's not ideal about their current solution? And that's an opportunity for you. Take notes when you're talking to them because you're going to forget and you're going to talk to more than one, hopefully. So just literally take notes so you can go back and say, hey, here's a recurring theme. A few more questions you can ask. Also, they really are kind of getting into numbers where you can kind of quantitatively decide if this is a good problem. How much does this problem cost you now? How frequently do you encounter it? Just literally asking them the answers to some of these things and starting to get a sense of the market. What's your budget to fix it? Is this even something they would be able to fix? Like, okay, if I do this, I got to charge less than $300 a year or whatever, because no one's going to pay more than that based on my set. Then you get back to launching quickly, which means that MVP, right? It has to be minimum. The extremely limited functionality. Whatever you think you need, it's probably not that. You want to focus on a smallest niche you can of customers and their sort of biggest problem that you can solve easily, quickly. You should be looking at like 2 weeks, not months, right? Like a week or two. I want to give examples. I know talks are more interesting with examples of, I don't think I've done a lot of little projects. Some have succeeded, some haven't, but I'd never spend more than 2 weeks to launch from idea to from really starting on, like I'll have the idea and think about it for a while, but I'm like, I want to do this. Like you want to launch, you got to get over the ego or it's kind of like art where you're like embarrassed to show your art a little bit, but you got to, the whole point of it is to show your art, right? Like a boat is safe in a harbor, but that's not why boats are made or whatever. Startup is safe in your mind, but that's not what they're for. Specifically, when you're planning your MVP, actually set like a 2 to 3 weeks, like say I'm launching September 30th or whatever. Then write a spec out and say like, this is what it's going to have. This is, actually write it out, just like taking notes on the users, actually write out what that spec is. And then as you start to go through, you go back and look at that spec. And first of all, you'll realize where you're adding things that weren't in the spec. You'll also realize that like, I can't get this done in 3 weeks, and cut things out of the spec. And there's more than you think you can probably cut out of that spec. Really focus on that one thing important. And then there's that launch, and people think of the launch as like this huge, amazing thing. I like to compare it to like when you're pregnant and you're looking forward to the birth. And it's this huge, like, oh my God, and like, I got to get it right. And where should we have it? Or, I just really hope my birth experience is like this. And it's like, it is a big deal, especially your first one. It's over in 2 to 3 days. And then you have that kid, hopefully the rest of your life. It's the same thing with your company. Like the launch is just like, don't get all hyped about your launch, because here's some examples I'm getting to. This is some charts I went back on a few of my own little products. I This is DisneyBracket.com that I had the idea because I saw people doing this. They made a March Madness bracket of Disney movies and Pixar movies. And it was just a stupid PDF that was getting, or a JPEG that was being forwarded around. People print it out, circle them, take a picture of it and post it on Facebook. And I saw it one night in March 2018. And I was like, this isn't a website. And I registered DisneyBracket.com that night. And I made a website up where you could do it. And I just posted in some of those threads. And it went from, nobody to, and I had all these little issues like I needed to make it not dynamic so it would load faster. I made it all JavaScript a couple days over. I was on a cruise at the time, so I didn't have much internet. So it was hard to get it going, but it started spreading. I had at the peak 250,000 unique users a day visiting this website. But there was no like preparation. I mean, I'll get into this later about timing your launch and matching your product and market fit. But that thing had very good product market fit, but no founder market fit, or I really had no interest in supporting it or building on it. Another one that I did was Bitcoin Builder was a Bitcoin exchange. It had actually been lots of different things. I had first made it a way to dollar cost average and buy Bitcoin. I think I got one user. A few months later, I made a way that you could do like sort of keep track of your taxes and do your taxes with Bitcoin, like hooking into API, some exchanges, a couple users. I made a way that you could accept political donations with Bitcoin. I think, one user. And then in February of 2014, I pivoted to this, I basically made an exchange for Mt. Gox Bitcoins for real Bitcoins. And again, I saw people doing this on I found people who had this problem and they were doing it on a forum, and I posted on that forum and I posted in our Bitcoin. And I think I posted it that day and some people started using it and then started taking off. And 14 days later, like there's no launch. You just like start telling people and get it out there. And then sometimes that's your launch. And then sometimes your launch suddenly happens 2 weeks later because something takes off. Don't get too excited about your launch. This is one, I had this idea. It was like angel investing, fantasy angel investing, Exchangeal. And I had the idea, I set it up, in a week or so, and I announced it right after YC Demo Day, and I had all the companies in the YC Demo Day in there, and I put it on Hacker News, and it got to the #1 spot on Hacker News, and I got just like a crazy spike of users, everyone registered doing this, and then it sort of fell off, and the product wasn't really very good. It didn't, I think there are a lot of things I could have done differently. And so that launch has sort of failed in a way. I mean, it succeeded wildly. Like people liked the idea and the site, though the product wasn't there. I kind of launched it too soon, but it's good to do that. If I'd worked on it more, I had this base now that I could have gone back and pivoted. Another one I had was EPUB Bud. This is one that I put out there and it just slowly evolved. Like there was a launch, I think I emailed some people and I put up some Google ads and it started to get users. It just got more and more sort of Google traffic and it built slowly. This is a 7-year graph. And at the peak, it was doing like 150,000 unique visitors a day. I turned on ads and was making like $2,000 a day on it. And there was no real launch of that. And it just grows organically over time. This is when Google started blocking me. And then I was also lost interest. It was trouble. But the idea, there's sort of, once you launch, like that's just one, it's like should be every 2 weeks you're kind of launching, right? You're getting the feedback, you're seeing what's happening, you're getting your customers, you're adding a feature, you're taking away features, you're focusing on things, and you're just repeating this process over and over. So people imagine that, yeah, your company just grows, a successful startup just looks like this. It's actually more, and you saw in those graphs, like highs and lows, and things sort of steady out, and then you get a spike of growth, and you have this other like mini launch, and things start to break again or scale, and new problems come up. And it's really, people talk about product market fit, and I think of it as two things, like there's your product and there's your market, and they need to fit. Like it's also the same with like your career, and this goes back to the ideas that you don't want to have an idea like you're a freshman in college and you're like, I'm going to start a rocket company or something like that. It's like, think of it as like a job. Like, could you go apply to be CEO of a rocket company right now? It's like, probably not. Like my career went from mowing lawns, working at McDonald's, buying this arcade thing and trying to put it in venues to make money, starting a doing web design for people, making my own little web thing, starting doing web hosting for them. Web hosting took off. That slowly built. There was no launch. It went for 17 years. Sold that. Got into Bitcoin. Bitcoin Builder went through 3 things. Got big with the exchange. And it's like a career. Like you have to build up your network, your ideas of big problems, your skills, and it's the same for a company. Like you don't want to launch. Like that's why you also maybe don't want to raise VC for a while. Like you need to do it when it's right, when things are appropriate. Like it's your product. You don't want to launch with a Super Bowl ad like Quibi or something, and like we're doing this huge launch, we're blowing up this whole thing, and you haven't really figured out what people really want, and your marketing gets way ahead of your ability. So like that's what happened with Exchangeable. I think there's something there, but that was my very first iteration. Those were my very first users. I went to the very first page, number 1 on a very popular website for this kind of stuff. And I got all these users and registrations, and everyone's just like, I don't really get it. It's not that great. And you're like, I probably should have like more slowly built that up. And then so product market fit, and then there's the team or founder fit. I put that as a third dimension in here. Like I was saying, it's sort of your ability, whether it's just you as a solo founder or you and your co-founders or your team or the size of your company and your employees. Like it's hard to just like, even if you got a great product and you've got great marketing and it's just exploding, you've got to so quickly like scale up your team and handle it all that things start to break in your system and your culture. And so all this stuff it's hard to take shortcuts. Like money is a way to, throw gasoline on the fire, but it'll, usually that's in the marketing department. It's maybe in the hiring, but you can get ahead of your product and your market with your team. You can get ahead with your product without ever going out to market or having a team that can support it. And you can get ahead in the market without having a good team or good product. And they just naturally follow each other. In terms of actually like legitimately knowing if you have product market fit when you're there, I mean, mostly it's like, like your problem is no longer getting customers, your problem is servicing them. That's when you have product market fit. This is actually a specific example of where you can survey your customers. Just ask them, how would you feel if you could no longer use our product? Very disappointed, somewhat disappointed, not disappointed at all. And once you get to about 40% responding, they'd be very disappointed if they couldn't use your product. That is a sign that you've actually got something pretty good here. It's like indispensable for 40% of your users. And then there's a question, you're not getting product market fit. When is it time to pivot? And I lifted a bunch of this whole slide is straight out of YC, so it's a different style. Here you go. Good reasons to pivot. I'll just read them straight here. Just not happy, hate it. It's not growing. There's not that founder market fit, right? You realize that it's all sort of the same dimension. Maybe that you were betting on something like massive VR adoption and you're like, it's not happening. Stop trying to make it happen, right? Maybe that's time to pivot. And also just, usually you'll have an idea of things. You're like, we just got to get through this. All right, we launched that. Okay, that's okay. It's not working. I got another idea. You're still excited. You still got ideas. When you start to run out of those and you're like, I don't know. This is not good reasons to pivot, not good reasons not to pivot. I don't know why they put it like this, but yeah, getting to like, yes, I am using VR as an example, but yeah, you can read, right? You're either just doing the fun part, basically. You're just doing the fun stuff. It's getting too hard and you're like, I have a new fun idea. It's getting too hard because you got to do marketing, you got to talk to users, or it's getting too hard product-wise, or it's getting too hard founder or co-founder-wise, or something like that. And definitely just like chasing a trend or something and being like, okay, we got to pivot, guys. This is the new hotness here. If we want to raise more money, this is the way to go. Mostly though, people take too long to pivot. It's not usually pivot. I don't know, people do both. But yeah, it's hard. You lost a version, you've already sunk time and money into this. You've got a little bit of traction, but you're not seeing like any way to get to that product market fit where it's just like, I don't know what to do with all these customers. Yeah, embarrassment. People are like saying you could do it. People are like, yeah, I like it. I mean, yeah, sure. Yeah, this is so cool. Yeah, blaming the rest of the world or something, customers, your investors, other thing, outside forces, like, sorry, your job is to be empathetic, find problems and fix them, not imagine there are problems out there. And yeah, it's easier to get product market fit by pivoting usually to a whole new idea than just throwing more time at it, like we just got to change this a little bit, and you got a certain number of chances. So go fast. Don't be afraid to try something else. Things that are better than the current idea, something you're just more excited about, something bigger. This is sort of interesting. Like one of the things I'm working on now, which wouldn't have been possible earlier in my career, but I'm trying to put an aerial gondola into Santa Monica. And I just wanted to do from the pier to the promenade, something like that, like a small sort of tourist one. I went to City Hall and got meetings, and they were like, let's go to UCLA. And I was like, that's not what I was thinking. Like, that's crazy. But we've basically pivoted to that now. And like LA Metro's on board, mayor of LA is excited, Santa Monica City, like everyone's so much more excited. And it's actually easier. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But yeah, maybe you want to pivot to something easier too, that you can actually get out there and get working if you're working on something too hard. All right. Don't do it too much. And maybe do it before you have any employees, because they start to lose faith in you. And remember, what kills companies is giving up. As long as the founders don't give up, as long as the founders get along, your company doesn't fail. So be careful when you pivot. It might be stressful and break and kill your company. And then this was the last thing they threw in, just like, if you're trying to think of an idea, you can kind of score it, scale 1 to 10 and figure out your average. Hopefully you're above a 5 on average, like how big the idea seems, how perfect it is for the founders, how easy it is to get started, and then starting to get feedback and think, hey, people love this, right? And hopefully that's at least a 7. So like that. And then you just repeat, like I was saying. All right. Any questions? Or shall we go to the pods? Let's see. Anybody? You can unmute. You can add comments. You can put in the chat. That's it. Let's see. Breakout rooms. Huh? Uh-oh, wait a second. What's going on here? All right. Manually. Let's see. Anyone in the chat? Anyone? How do you...
Hey Josh, a question from the chat. How do you negotiate early market feedback versus revealing too much to competitors?
I mean, my opinion on that is 100% early market feedback, 0% revealing too much to competitors. I do not care about competitors.
Yeah. I agree with Josh totally. The idea is worth nothing. Getting to work is what's the tough part. If you're getting to work, that's what you should be doing. Yeah. Stealing an idea is...
I'll come in and add another layer there. So basically, if someone else, let's imagine a world where someone else had your idea and they were a meaningful threat. That means that's not a good idea for you or your team, right? So there should be some unfair advantage that means that that's why your team is the right team to not just do this, but to win, right? So I'd say that's one facet of this. Another facet of this is this idea that if you are not willing to share your idea openly, you will never share it with enough people for it to become successful. So I think those are the two ways that I see that question.
Yeah, and I know it's sort of glib. I mean, everyone's so worried about it, but it really it really is true. You probably don't have something such an amazing insight that that the only advantage you have is that insight. And if the world finds out, that's it. Poof, you're dead.
Hey Josh, I'll throw in a quick thing about the sort of selling before it's built. I agree with that 100%. It's super important. It's super important to not invest a lot before you actually know there's the product market fit. The flip side is you don't want to go into your potential customer owning that and saying, I haven't even started on this. That's just a piece of paper and da, da, da. You need to go in because nobody really wants to put on the customer side real effort into buying something if they don't even think it's been worked on. So it's a balancing act in the sale.
Yeah, there's definitely different levels of that, talking to customers, like that really early, like talking to people in the industry, just saying, just like informally, hey, yeah, I want to talk about this idea. And then there's the actual like, yeah, I'm starting to get users or, I'm starting to try and get people to commit to paying.
I think for Harvey Mudd audience in particular, engineers are a painfully honest group. It's sort of like truth is our, why we like engineering. We like facts and we like black and whites. And so probably the engineers and the computer scientists in the audience, the kids who are, have to kind of get past the fear of disappointing the potential customer, over-promising. Because again, if you're talking to somebody who's real, who's going to pay you real money, they need to feel like you've put in real investment for them to take their time into it.
Exactly.
Josh, I wanted to throw in my 2 cents on this too.
Sure,
I think that the time model you have, like the super high speed time model, is one model that's quite good. And it's especially good if you're doing things like creating apps and software where you can actually bring something to market in 2 weeks. I don't think it applies to all applications, especially hard side applications and the like. And I think sometimes you can justify being a little more deliberate and a little more slow than trying to launch out. I just noticed a moment ago that Sergey had put up a post on the HMC INQ Reddit page called Building and Growing Arc Servers. And so it's actually a repost from, let's see.
And I agree with that, but that was the part I was saying that but put up quickly put up a website or put up the what it is and start, getting as much as you can.
Yeah, I mean, I think that that's a good way to start this, but I think if you sit down and you have a fairly elaborate plan, and for you, it just doesn't make sense to go quite that fast, and there's no compelling reason to go quite that fast, especially, for example, if you're pretty sure that nobody else is aware of what you're doing, and you won't likely have immediate competition, that sometimes there is some merit to delaying and being a little more careful with your launch. I mean, every now and then I see a launch that's really kind of what I'll just describe as a crummy launch, right? Where it just wasn't thought through that much. And I'm thinking, my God, if they had only spent a little bit more time and got a little bit more feedback from, friends and people close by, that might have worked out better. So I think it's one of those rules where it's a very good rule to start with and maybe a very good rule to stick with. But sometimes if you have this feeling that you've got to be a little more deliberate about it, then you take a little more time. Now, having said that, if I were to give you my long and unpleasant and unflattering list of why a lot of mud companies do poorly or fail, one of the reasons that is at the very, very top is that they tend to go too slow. They take too long for everything they do. And you and I both know that, right? We just see these things just rolling. We've been talking about specific case studies that we've thought about in the past where that was clearly, obviously, completely true, where the market just left you by because you were trying to perfect this and perfect that. There was this old story that circulated on Harvey Mudd about the chief engineer from Rockwell who worked on the P-51 design, whose dorm is named after him. That's Atwell. His famous story was when they were developing the P-51 at the start of World War II, that they were trying to upgrade it and fix it and get it just right. And Roosevelt apparently called the entire engineering team to Washington, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, including Atwood. And they said they're standing in the White House and Roosevelt starts yelling at him and says, just build it. And they went back and got the plane flying in about 2 weeks. That's a famous story he liked to tell Harvey Mudd when he was still alive.
You can do anything in 2 weeks. 2 weeks is the, yeah. 1 week is a little hard, but 2 weeks, unlimited potential. I think should we do the breakout rooms? Any more quick questions for everybody? I think we're gonna start breaking it out. So just so we have time, because at 1:30, we're gonna have the guest speakers back. So I'll do that. Open in the rooms. Everyone rename yourself. I don't know what room you're in if you didn't rename yourself. Let's see. If you're still here, oh, there's, all right. You're gonna go to the dog room, to the dragon room. Sorry, Gary. I just had to. Dragon room. All right. Oh, this is tricky because as they rename, they reshuffle in alphabetical order and right under my finger. Rabbit room. Rooster room. Come on. dog. Ah. Horse. All right. Those of, oh, Rooster, here we go. All right. Dan, what's your room? There we go. Devin's going to the rat pod. No, rat pod.
Josh, I assume you have a cutoff at 2:30 again?
No, it should be able to just roll. I can, anybody else here? Oh, dog, there we go. Desmond is a dog. Wait, Devin, I thought I just did you. It does this weird, there's some little glitches in here where people end up in the 2 copies or something. Oh, Stefanos, I just added him to one. I'll just put him in. Some of us I'm gonna reshuffle where it's not too many. Haha. Rosalique, are you really here? Putting you in Ox. Who else? Dan, what's his? It's not really here. All right, I forgot to stop